Hello to all my viewers, this is Magicalamazing, and today's video is going to be on how I made my MP40. As with all of my guns, I'm going to start out by sketching a full-scale picture of the gun onto a piece of paper, in this case 2. I'm going to take a piece of cardboard this length and roll it into a tube. Then I'm going to sketch where I'm going to cut out the slot for the charging handle. This is what I came up with. On the opposite side, I'm going to sketch where I'm going to cut out the ejection port, and then I'm going to cut it out. Here's what the whole thing looks like with the two cutouts and their relative positions on the tube. I've also covered the inside with white paper to make it look better and to make it easier for the bolt to slide. The bolt will start out as a piece of cardboard like this that I'm going to turn into a cylinder. Here's the length it's going to be. It doesn't have to be exactly this long, but this is how long I made mine. Next, I'm going to punch a hole in the side of the bolt here and tightly roll a piece of paper, which I'll insert into it, and it will become the charging handle. Here's how I'm going to do it and how it works. We're going to insert the bolt, line up the hole with the slot I cut for the charging handle, and insert the paper tube. And make sure that it slides easily, and when it's all the way forward, it covers the ejection port entirely. This is where I glued the charging handle into the bolt. I'm going to cut out these two tiny pieces of cardboard for details on the side of the charging handle, and then I'm going to start work on the grip and handle. I'm going to cut out two of this shape and a strip of cardboard to connect them together. You don't have to go all the way around this piece of cardboard with that strip. I'm going to leave the top part that's going to be against the cylinder open because you're not going to see it. Next, I'm going to cut out a strip of cardboard which is going to be wrapped around the tube to form this little bump on the end. And here's what it looks like once it's been done. With the final thickness of the end of the gun established, I'm going to cut out a circle of cardboard and cap it just to get that out of the way. Once that's done, I'm going to glue on the handle that I just made. For a little bit more detail on the back of the gun, I'm going to cut out a piece like this with a few holes in it and wrap it around the thicker part like this. Again, just for aesthetics. Two pieces like this are going to become the foregrip of the gun, and I'm going to glue them onto the gun before I connect them with a strip because the strip doesn't go all the way around. Here you can see where I've put them on and where I've tapered them a little bit. Here is the shape of the 4 pieces I'm going to cut out here, and I'm going to remove some of the corrugation from 2 of them, and you'll see why. Here you can see how I've glued 2 together. I made 2 of these and covered the corrugation of the bottom with a strip of cardboard. These are going to make up the thicker part of the foregrip. Here you can see where I've attached the one on the left. The one on the right went on the same way. Next, I'm going to cut out 2 of this shape, which is going to cover the corrugation on the rear of the 2 pieces that I just attached. Here's what I mean by that. I purposefully made the piece a little bit too large because I didn't feel like trimming exactly, and I could always cut it down once it's attached, and so I did. Here's what it looks like from the one side, and a view from directly at the back. You can see that all the corrugation is covered. To cover the rest of the corrugation on the pieces I just attached, I'm going to cut out a couple strips of this shape. Here you could see the one on the left, and here you could see the one on the right. Same idea. The texture on the foregrip is going to be another piece of cardboard I'm going to remove the corrugation from. The reason I used a separate piece of cardboard and a cutout like this is because the corrugation on that other piece is a little bit finer. It just kind of looked better than using the corrugation on the one piece that is already attached. Now I'm going to finish the front of the foregrip there by cutting out a piece like this and covering it. I made sure there was a space on the bottom right here for where the disassembly knob is going to go. Said knob is going to be made out of 2 pieces like this, a circle and a strip wrapped around it. Here are the 2 pieces put together, and here's what it looks like when they're on the gun. The grips are going to be a couple pieces of cardboard like this with both sides tapered down, and then I'm going to use the same method as before, taking another strip of cardboard with finer corrugation, cutting out a shape like this, removing the inside corrugation from the grip, and inserting the piece that I just cut out. This is what it should look like once everything's done. Then I simply glue them onto the gun. The trigger guard is a piece of cardboard like this with the corrugation on top and bottom covered. I lift a couple tabs so I could more easily blend it into the rest of the gun. Now on the real gun, there are reinforcement stampings on the tube on top of the gun. I'm going to emulate this by taking a few strips of cardboard and gluing them at these positions. On the real gun, the rear of the tube is dome-shaped. Because domes are pretty difficult to do in cardboard, I decided to just take a couple pieces of cardboard here in semicircles and glue them on to give sort of a step down. Next, I'm going to cut out a piece like this, which I'm going to wrap around the ejection port, where you see on the picture. Here's what it looks like once it's put on. The magazine well started its life as these two pieces, which I then attached to the gun. Unfortunately, I did forget to take a picture of that, but I connected them together with a piece of cardboard like this, the front and the back, leaving the bottom open for the magazine. The non-working magazine release button is going to be these three pieces here, and here's what they look like when they're put together. The reinforcement stampings and magazine release details are going to be just strips of cardboard cut out like this and attached to the magazine well. Here's how I put them on. Again, make sure the bottom of the magazine well is open so you can actually use it. Next, a very thin piece of cardboard is going to be wrapped around the tube where you see in the picture. This is going to be for attaching the front sling mount. Said sling mount is just a shape like this, which is going to be glued directly to the side of the strip I just glued onto the gun. The hex nut for the barrel started out as a strip like this, which I then bent into the shape of a hex nut like this. I then made a cone, which will be on the end of the hex nut, and just glued it on. I trimmed off the edges so it would match up a little bit better. Then I rolled a piece of paper to be the barrel. Notice it is kind of tapered, it's supposed to be, and glued it onto the front of the gun, as you see here. From this position, you might see that the transition from the rest of the gun to the hex nut is not the smoothest in the world. But that doesn't really matter because that's not an angle you'll see the gun from much, and it's made of cardboard, so you kind of take what you can do. To finish the details of that area, I'm just going to take a strip of cardboard like this and wrap it around the barrel right in front of the nut. The details on the front of the barrel, i.e. the sight and barrel protector, are going to be from a picture that I drew like this. I'm going to take a strip of cardboard, thin, and wrap it around the barrel right here. Here's what it looks like. I cut out these two pieces, which will become the front part of the barrel protector, and I connected them together using a thin strip of cardboard. I then glued it on to the piece I just wrapped around the barrel. The rear part of the barrel protector is going to be these three pieces, which I will connect together and then glue under the barrel to the piece that I just attached. This will take a little bit of fitting and trimming, so don't be afraid to do that. Here are some more strips that I'm going to be wrapping around the gun to give it some more detail. Here's what they look like once they're attached. Notice the corrugation on those front two pieces is out to simulate knurling. The front sight is going to mainly consist of these three pieces with a blade inside the tube there. And here's what they look like all together. Notice I did cover the front and back of the bottom part of the sight. Then I glued it onto the gun. The last little bit of detail to the front of the gun is going to be these two triangles, which I'm going to connect with a strip of cardboard and glue right behind the sight. The rear sight is going to be made of these pieces, and here's what it looks like once they are all together. I cut out a bit of cardboard from the top of the gun where I know that sight's going to go to allow it to sit a little bit flatter, and then I glued it on. Now, a word of warning, the next part of this video is about how I made the folding stock. Now, because I was unable to make it so that the stock locks open or really locks closed, I would suggest you not do what I did and just take the parts and glue them in place. However, if you want to know how I did it, this is how. I started by rolling two pieces of paper of this length, which will become the arms of the folding stock, and I cut out two circles of this size, which will be the part that the arm attaches to and that pivots. The butt piece was a part that looks like this, which I folded into this shape. For the pivot point, I punched a hole in the back of the gun. I made sure that it is equidistant from the area around it, so that when I rolled the pin and put it in and attached the circles and spun them, they would remain in pretty much the same place. Here's what I mean by that. When I spin the circle, it doesn't look like it's moving side to side or up and down. It's perfectly centered. On the opposite side, I drilled a hole through the piece, again right in the center, so that I can stick the pin through and glue it from the outside so it doesn't get stuck to the body of the gun. I layered these two triangle-ish shapes, which are this size compared to the end of the arms of the gun, and then glued them on like this. These are going to be what attach the arms to the circles that we just made. The pivot points that will attach the arms to the butt of the gun started out as these pieces. I then put them together like this and trimmed them down so they just protruded past the bottom of the sleeves like this. I made a couple pieces like this which will be attached to the butt, and these are going to go right on the end only to the paper, allowing the cardboard sleeve around the paper to move freely. Here is where I attach them onto the inside of the butt. Here you can see how I have attached those two pieces to the arms of the gun and how they pivot so that the butt can sit flat, and then it was a sheer coincidence that it happened to meet resistance when it was out the right way. And I also attached the arms to the back of the gun in this position, again allowing it to swing freely. When the stock is swung all the way forward, this is where the butt sits on the foregrip, fairly centered like that. Once again though, I would just suggest gluing the pieces in this position instead of making them fold. Here's a little bit of a better view of where I attached the stock to the back of the gun. The magazine started as two side panels of this length, and then I made some side pieces for it and attached them together to make a box. I cut out a few more pieces, the ones that you see on the right, which will become the details and finishing touches on the magazine. Here's where all the pieces went. Notice that the over-traveler protector sits right beneath the magazine while touching it. The trigger was just the shape of the trigger with a strip of cardboard covering the corrugation glued into place. I cut out 7 circles, which will become the various screws and rivets throughout the outside of the gun, and on this picture you can see where I put them. I did the same thing on the other side. And like that, I was done with my MP40. So I hope this helped all you guys out and showed you a bit of a better insight into my thought process and building process. And this is Magicalamazing signing off till next time. See y'all later. Hello to all my viewers, this is Magicalamazing, and today's video is going to be on my even bigger Tech 9,